Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Just want to say that I appreciate you taking the time to watch this channel. It's been about 5 weeks since I've uploaded a video. I try to get one up at least every 2 weeks, and I was well on my way to that, and I almost had this one complete, but then I got a call that my sister, who is the last practicing Jehovah's Witness in our family — I'm the youngest of 11 siblings, she's the second oldest — got a call that she had fell and had injured herself pretty bad. She hit her head. Her health has been declining, unfortunately, since December, and she was in the hospital. So I went to the hospital to check on her, and the injury I saw on her head was absolutely horrific, where she had fell and busted her head open. It was the worst I've ever seen. So they were trying to, get that healed up or what have you, but it was not healing, unfortunately. And as time rolled on, they were trying to help her get back on her feet where she could walk, and it was obviously a challenge for her. So they transferred her to a rehabilitation center across town. And while she was there, they were trying to help her walk and all that, but it just wasn't going very well. Things were looking really bad. So she requested to be transferred to another hospital. She had a bad experience at this rehabilitation place. They transferred her to West Florida Hospital. And the doctor there did some examinations on her and blood work and all that, and pretty much told her that she was in the final stages of liver failure. And at West Florida Hospital, they went ahead and told her that her condition was terminal, and that she was not it was not survivable, barring a miracle. Nonetheless, she accepted that she was going to pass away, and she said she just wanted to make it to the memorial on the 15th. And she actually, in her mind, thought she was going to get out of the hospital in order to attend the memorial at the Kingdom Hall. But she didn't. Health-wise, she just could not go. So she participated from her hospital bed on the 15th. The night of the 15th, she participated in the memorial via Zoom with several people in the room with her. And she passed the bread, and she passed the wine and all that good stuff. And she participated. And that was the one — it meant a lot to her to get to make it to that memorial somehow, so she got to do that. The very next morning, no sooner than she really woke up, she told her roommate, who was also a Jehovah's Witness, they've been best friends for like 33 years. She told her that she just wanted to go ahead and pass away. She did not want any more medication to prolong her life or anything. She just wanted some painkillers, the morphine or what have you, and she wanted to go ahead and end her life, or let the natural causes take place. So by that afternoon, they had her transferred down into hospice. No sooner than they got her into hospice, they gave her a shot of morphine, and she was in a deep, deep sleep from that moment, and she never woke up from it. And I believe it was maybe 2.5 days later. I was in the room. My wife was there. My older sister and my sister's roommate were there, and she eventually passed away. And she passed away peacefully. She didn't struggle. That's I guess the good thing about it. She didn't sit there and appear to be in any type of distress or anything. She just passed away peacefully. And we had her funeral. We had a viewing on Friday night, and then we had her funeral on Saturday at 10 a.m. And I have to give credit where credit is due. The brother, or the elder who did who officiated the service, he did a fantastic job. That's hard for me to say because I don't care for this religion. But he did a fantastic job. He kept it about my sister. He did talk about, what their hopes are for the future and things like that. But he never turned it into a book show like the elder did at my dad's funeral, where he's just throwing books in everybody's faces, inviting them to learn about the religion and all that nonsense. But nonetheless, I'm finally able to get this video complete. So now you know the rest of the story. I do apologize for the delay in getting everything completed. I'm working. What I'm doing, the whole purpose of this YouTube channel is to share my testimony. I'm laying the foundation of my earlier years and all that associated in relation to the religion. And eventually I'm working up to the circumstances where God began to plant seeds in me and began to open my eyes and reveal the truth about the so-called truth. And God eventually woke me up and set me free from it. And that's where I'm really wanting to get to, because I want everyone to hear the circumstances. After being indoctrinated from birth and programmed to believe one way and being taught to avoid anyone that teaches anything contrary to what I've been taught from birth, I just can't wait to share what God did. No man had any part in my testimony. No man had any part in me waking up. It was strictly the Holy Spirit that began to work within me and began to lead me and show me things that ultimately opened my eyes up, and the scales fell off my eyes, and I began to see the so-called truth for the false truth that it actually is. And God set me free. While I was at the hospice center, we did have a Jehovah's Witness come in that I'm pretty close to. I'm not going to say his name or anything like that, because I have the utmost respect for him. But we talked for a couple of hours, and we had a really good conversation. I didn't bring up religion to him or anything like that. He brought it up to me. And he hit me with a few scriptures here and there, and he was, explaining more of their position, which he already knows that I have experience with the religion. We're that close. And as usual, it's the same old conversation, when you start countering with scriptures and things like that. Instead of giving you an answer, a scriptural or biblical position answer, they just change the subject. And that was the experience with this particular individual. Either they don't acknowledge what you're saying, or they just simply change the subject. Nonetheless, I want to go ahead and end this introduction here and get started on this video so that you can watch it. I hope you enjoy it. This covers the years right around 81 to like 86, somewhere around there. We're probably going to pick up around 86 to 93 in the next video, because I want to work up to the point where my daughter was born in 1993, because I want to share a story of something that I said to her when she was just 2 months old, laying on my shoulder, because my dad had called me and put the fear of God and the paranoia and all that nonsense in me again about something taking place in the world that was an assurance that Armageddon, or the tribulation, was once again just months away from us. And I felt very guilty for bringing my daughter into the world. And I said something to her while she was on my shoulder. And it was all, of course, rooted in fear and anxiety and paranoia, the nonsense that was ingrained in me from childhood. So nonetheless, I'm going to end this here. Enjoy the video. I will see you in part 7. Greetings everyone, and thank you for tuning in to video number 6 in my testimony series. It is through this series of videos that I'm sharing my testimony, having been raised from birth a Jehovah's Witness. In the previous 5 videos, I've shared stories concerning my parents, my grandparents, and siblings as it relates to being raised up in the religion. I'm not going to recap those videos here at this moment, because reviewing them could result in this video just being too lengthy. Today, I want to talk to you about the years from 1981 through 1986. I'm going to share a few experiences that took place in my life between the time of 11 and 15 years of age. I will be sharing a story that my dad told me and my siblings during a family book study when we were very young, concerning soldiers that would one day cut he and our mother's heads off and force us children to watch. I will also share the story of my dad telling us that 1986 had been declared the International Year of Peace and Security. Therefore, most assuredly, Armageddon would take place within 5 years. My purpose for sharing my testimony on YouTube, number 1, is to expose this religion for being the false religion that it truly is. Number 2, I hope that by sharing my testimony, it helps those who are also recovering from the negative impacts the religion had on their lives as well. By sharing my experiences as a former Jehovah's Witness, it also helps me to heal and detox from the disappointments and disillusionments programmed within my mind throughout the most influential years of my life. I turned 10 years old June the 7th of 1981. By this time in my life, I had been well indoctrinated into the religion, not because I believed it was God's organization, but because the organization had high opinions of themselves and falsely taught these opinions as biblical doctrines. I had been programmed from birth to believe they were the only religion that was teaching the truth, and that if I did not believe this and remain with them, Jehovah would surely kill me at Armageddon. We've all heard it. And of course, our dad followed the organization's lead as he implemented fear and paranoia into our minds as well. The organization has taught that at some point in the always near future, the United Nations will one day commence to destroying all false religion. And of course, false religion is always defined as all religions except the Jehovah's Witnesses. And after the UN is finished annihilating all false religion, they will then turn their attention to Jehovah's one and only true religion and attempt to destroy them as well. It is at this point that Jehovah will intervene with his own hand and supernaturally protect this joke, charading as his only channel of communication to the people of the earth. Anyone who is familiar with Bible prophecy can very quickly recognize this as a play on Ezekiel 38, in which God supernaturally intervenes to protect Israel during the tribulation. Still in the early 1980s, when I was around 11 or 12 years old, I remember during one of our Monday evening family book studies, my dad told us a story of a future event that paralyzed me with fear. He stopped the study and told us kids that one day soon, United Nations soldiers would break down our front door. They would then drag he and our mother out into the front yard, instructing them to deny Jehovah or have their heads cut off. Of course, they would never deny Jehovah, therefore we children would witness our parents being beheaded. He was attempting to drive home the importance of committing to Jehovah through his earthly organization in order that upon our beheading also, Jehovah would judge us as faithful and resurrect us after destroying the earth and all false religion. And of course, there was never any mention that Jesus died in our place in order that we can have the gift of eternal life. A highly prioritized emphasis on submission to the organization was the most assured way to obtaining Jehovah's favor. The organization is guilty of what is referred to as replacement theology, in that they make the absurd claim that Jehovah is done with Israel due to Israel's disobedience. Therefore, the covenant and all pertinent blessings thereof have been transferred to the witnesses and taken away from Israel. Of course, any and everyone opposing this point of view, successfully confusing the witnesses by presenting the scriptures in their proper context, is sure to be dismissed as closed-minded and argumentative. Their minds are made up, so let's not confuse them with the facts. As far back as I can remember, we were discouraged from doing anything that would ultimately lead us to obtaining any level of success in life. We were not only discouraged from obtaining higher education, we were pretty much discouraged from obtaining even a high school diploma. Our dad made it very clear, even setting the example that since Armageddon was always just a few months or years away, we should simply do just enough in life to simply get by, and that is exactly what we were raised to do. Back in the late 1970s, my dad had this creative design for manufacturing dinette table sets. Being a welder from the age of 14, he was certainly skilled in this regard, therefore bringing this dream to fruition was very feasible. In the early 80s, my dad decided to put his plan into action. The home we rented had the perfect sized workshop, which was the primary reason my dad chose to rent it in the first place. Our dad built work tables attached with steel shaping tools he had constructed himself, in order that the flat metals could be bent and shaped into specific precision designs. He would then lay a wider outer band on top of the table in an oval or circular pattern, depending on the type and size of the table he would be creating. At that time, he would line the pieces that would create the design inside the outer band and then weld them all together. Upon completion, a full table and matching chairs would be the result. As our dad would complete the welding and construction of the tables, he would have us kids take them out back, and our responsibility was to prepare them for painting by cleaning them up using drills fitted with wire brush wheels. I remember many times upon returning home from elementary school being instructed to grab a drill and to go out back to help the others. As we would finish our parts, our dad would then prime and then paint the dinette sets the various colors that he would choose. He would then carefully fit the pre-cut glass tops to the tables, and us kids would screw the chair seats into place. It was the perfect plan for breaking the poverty lineage on our family, and we all had high hopes for success. But of course, we were Jehovah's Witnesses, and Armageddon was always just a few months away. Allow me to explain. Eventually, my dad realized that his dinette set creations were catching on. He had a little success selling them for as much as $550 each to various Jehovah's Witness friends, co-workers, and family members. Eventually, he began to develop a much bigger vision for his dinette sets. He would attempt to market them on a much larger scale. One day, he loaded a completed table up onto his trailer, and along with it, he took an album containing pictures of the various types and sizes of his creations to our local Sears and Roebuck store located in the mall here in Pensacola. The manager put him in touch with the buyer, who loved the dinette set table so much that he ordered 300 of them, assuring my dad that every Sears within the United States would be displaying these tables. But no sooner was the plan taking off, our dad began showing less and less interest in what would surely be the biggest financial opportunity of his entire lifetime. No effort whatsoever was made in fulfilling the orders for Sears. The recession of 1982 hit, and our dad spent the next 2 years working odd jobs but remaining mostly unemployed. In January of 1984, we were evicted from the home we were renting, and there went the workshop. For the remainder of 1984, we barely survived, and our mother signed us up and received food stamps in order to keep us all fed. Upon moving from the home in January of 1984, an elder at the local Kingdom Hall gave my dad permission to pull a mobile home onto his property because we had nowhere to put it. My dad loaded the mobile home with most everything we owned and had it pulled to the elder's backyard. With my dad's unemployment compensation established, my parents found a cheaper home to rent, and we then moved in. For the next year, my dad continued looking for employment. Just 1 year after moving the mobile home to the congregation elder's yard, the loving, caring, and compassionate servant of Jehovah told my dad not to bother coming back to get the mobile home, explaining that it and all of its contents now belonged to him. A meeting was set with the elders, and I stood in the foyer of the Kingdom Hall listening as a heated discussion was taking place behind the closed library doors. After about an hour, my dad exited from the library with a very disappointed look on his face. As we drove home, he explained that he had decided not to fight for the mobile home through the legal system because he didn't want to bring a reproach on Jehovah's name. In this moment, I asked my dad why he had not continued and fulfilled the table orders for Sears. My reasoning was that surely this would have prevented us from going through hell the previous 3 years. My dad's answer was typical for a Jehovah's Witness. He explained that Jehovah did not want us to build up treasure on earth. He said that had he pursued the success of his dream, it would have required too much of his time, resulting in less field service work. He then reminded me that Armageddon was just around the corner, and his time was better spent serving Jehovah. I had mentioned this story in much less detail in a previous video, and I still believe that had the narcissistic governing body found out what they had lost in monetary contributions due to my dad's poor decision making, most assuredly they would have guilted and shamed him for that also. In the summer of 1985, we attended the Assembly Convention located in Mobile, Alabama, which is about an hour from our hometown. During the convention, a brother announced from the platform that the United Nations had declared 1986 as the International Year of Peace and Security. And of course, this presented a fantastic opportunity for the religious leaders to further drive home the thought that Armageddon was once again just months away. As we were leaving the Mobile Civic Center, I remember the fear coupled with disappointment that I felt at the thought that I then, 14 years of age, would never have the chance to grow up, get married, and have children of my own. I was overcome with fear and anxiety as I listened to my dad and another brother discuss it as we walked down the street to where our vehicles were parked. Very close to that time period, I recall as we drove home from a Sunday morning meeting, a news brief came on the radio. The reporter stated that several Swiss banks had totally went bankrupt and closed their doors. Since our dad followed the governing body's lead in using fear in order to control their members, he seized this opportunity to explain to us kids that this news report was a sure sign that the tribulation was just months away. He then made a major deposit into our anxiety disorder bank by predicting that within 6 months we would be living in the woods at our local river system, in his words, fighting for our lives due to the tribulation being upon us. All due to a couple of Swiss banks closing their doors and going bankrupt.